What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond. Apologies that we're running a few minutes late here this morning. We had, Sean, we had to figure out what exactly were we wanted to start with this episode because there's just a bit of news happening at Hallis Hall this week, man.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, Kyle. I feel like it's been 4 days since we last spoke on here, and a lot has gone on. A lot has transpired.
That's an understatement. Yeah, it feels like Monday was a completely different world from where we're at now. I mean, where do you want to start, Sean, with all of this? Do we want to walk through kind of a timeline of what happened here to reset it?
Yeah, I suppose we could do that. I mean, Wednesday was a pretty wild day.
Yeah.
It's funny because I remember thinking as I was going into Hallis Hall on Wednesday morning, they're coming off 2 losses. Usually, Justin doesn't always say a lot after a loss. There's times when he's tight-lipped and kind of, gives you run-of-the-mill answers, but that was not what happened. He came out and, he spoke his mind. And really it didn't take a lot of prompting. I think the very first question was something to the effect of, what did you see on tape? And then he just dove right into it. And of course people are going to ask follow-up questions on what he's saying. And I mean,
and you're like, hey, all right, this is already a busy day,
So, he was a little bit critical of his coaches, a little bit critical of himself, and I guess critical of just the way things have gone these first 2 games, which, you know what, they're 0-2. I don't find that all that surprising. I love the honesty from him. I thought that was one of his best media sessions in the 3 years we've been covering him.
Yeah.
So all that goes down. And then, Matt Eberflus comes in afterwards and says the left tackle's going on IR. That's not good. That's one of those things that gets overlooked in all this craziness. And
yeah, they just kind of walk in really quick there and drop that little bombshell.
Yeah. So Braxton looked fine after the game. He did his regular media stuff. I talked to him. He seemed good. And he's been at practice this week, just not participating. So I think all that is positive. Hopefully that means it's not anything long-term. But of course he's going to have to miss 4 games when you go on IR. And then, somebody was asking Matt Eberflus about Alan Williams. And again, as he has for the last week, he didn't give any information. And then somebody followed up and says, is he still the defensive coordinator? And Matt said something to the effect of, I got nothing else to say on that. And that sort of set everything on fire.
You could tell he did not want it. Like he kind of hesitated. He started a little bit there. It was like, oh no, like this is, here we go. But it's kind of surprising. Like they had to have known I mean, it was Alan Williams' day to speak again. He's still not there. There was no explanation. Like they had to have known those questions were coming on Wednesday.
Yeah, and you wonder, what all was going on behind the scenes. Obviously, we don't know. And as things transpired that day on Wednesday, eventually, several hours later, Alan Williams submitted his resignation. He is no longer the defensive coordinator. And there's a lot of rumors flying around out there, but at the end of the day, like all we really know for certain is that he no longer works there, and they're not saying anything. I mean, we talked to the defensive assistant coaches yesterday, and they were clearly told to say, we're focused on the Chiefs, because that's literally what they kept saying. And it's weird. It's weird that it's weird that anybody in any work environment would leave for what they're calling a health reason, and nobody would wish them well or anything like that. So I don't know. It's just, the whole thing is weird.
Yeah, it's certainly weird. And I guess the first thing I'll say, I mean, we're going to talk about it, the start of the show here, but we're going to be pretty careful about what we discuss, and particularly the rumors that came to life on social media on Wednesday. And, I think a lot of this goes with media literacy too. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but, I guess pick me up here, Sean. I lost my train of thought going through that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we won't know this full story until until we do. And at this point in time, we don't. I would be very careful with what you trust on social media and where you're getting information. And some of that stuff may wind up being true. Some of it may wind up being false. We don't really know. At this point, all we know is that Alan Williams is no longer here, and they're going to kind of have to regroup. And Matt Eberflus is going to be calling plays for the defense.
Yeah, and so I think the important thing we've seen this week, because I mean some of the allegations made online, if I mean even like the stuff as Ryan Poles directly addressed the Hallis Hall being raided on Wednesday morning, saying that was unequivocally not true, right?
Yeah.
Like those are very like those type of allegations, and when you're talking about some of the stuff that's been said online that we're not going to say exactly what it even is, but that's really, really serious stuff. And that's when it's important to know what you're reading and who you're reading. And I mean, we could spend an entire episode and people wouldn't even care probably, but about media literacy, but there's become like this standard of one source reporting or anonymous source reporting, and particularly with I don't want to people on social media that have gathered following that frankly have not been in the locker room. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have a source or these people don't have a source, but they definitely don't have the track record, and to put out those allegations and that fact, like not a great look.
Well, and we all know that the NFL is crazy with the social media stuff, and there's so many eyeballs on these games every Sunday, and so many people who are, trying to make a name for themselves on social media. And not saying that that's what the guy was doing. I don't know what was going on, but it's just it can get crazy in the the rumors can get wild. Totally unrelated, but I mean, look at the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift stuff. Like, I don't know where this stuff comes from sometimes.
The social media and the NFL, I mean, just not the NFL. I guess it's social media in general. We live in a weird era now of how things are reported out and the way celebrity and sports interacts. But anyway.
Look, if there is anything fishy going on with this Alan Williams story, we'll know eventually.
Yeah.
And
that's what there are a lot of reports, and that's what whether there's any truth to those rumors or not, what that's going to do is it's going to set off a chain, particularly with the Bears. And that's what I didn't get. Like the Bears were so incredibly tight-lipped, even behind the scenes on this. Like usually you'll get people that will talk off the record or on background. They talk. If it is a health, like a true health and family situation where they'll say, listen, we can't say this on the record. This is kind of vaguely what's going on. They'll tell you what they can. So you can responsibly report on it. So this void doesn't exist, and that hasn't happened. So that there's a lot of things.
It just makes you question what's happening.
There's a lot of things that point to something weird going on here.
I think readers and fans are absolutely right to look at this whole situation and say, this is a little weird. This is fishy.
I'd say it's more than a little weird. I mean, you're a defensive
coordinator.
You're right. A defensive coordinator. And Dan Bernstein on over on 670 The Score made, I think it was Dan that first made the point of like when you talk about like health related reasons too, like you're voluntarily, when you're resigning, you're giving up access to some of the best healthcare in the world. You're working for an NFL team. Like it's just another thing. Like none of it makes sense. We're gonna find out eventually. Like I'm a little surprised it hasn't started to leak yet. Usually at this point, like that story, I don't think there's any way we get to game day though without this story starting to leak.
I think of like stories where it was like somebody was dealing with a serious health thing. I think of Chuck Pagano several years ago. I think of John Mechie, the Houston wide receiver last year. Like those were handled very differently, and something doesn't add up here.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, we're about 10 minutes in here, and thank you everyone who's already in the chat, trying to catch up now. And I see Peanut Tillman. Yes, Peanut Tillman is an FBI working for the
That is true,
FBI now.
guys.
Yes. But yes, thank you everyone who's with us here live this morning, listening to Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. You can watch us live on YouTube. If you are, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. Give a thumbs up and leave a comment as well. You can also download this as a podcast pretty much anywhere you find podcasts nowadays. And Sean, we got a lot to talk about, and you can find all of our content over at shawlocal.com. We got a lot to talk about from that content this week, including going back to the Justin Fields stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because let's get back to on fields. And you said it was the best press conference that you felt or one of the best press conferences Justin Fields has given since you've been here. I agree. I thought he was truthful, and I actually thought Matt Eberflus, when asked about Justin Fields' comments after, gave a fantastic answer himself. It was
everything was good.
They were like, yeah.
I did not think that the little second, mini press conference that Justin gave in the locker room was even necessary. Like I understand he was probably told to do. He was maybe told to do that, or he didn't realize what.
He's pretty plugged into social media. You know what I think? Maybe he was told to do that, or a PR flack came and said,
"Hey." The thing is, they had a 2-hour practice in between there, so he wasn't looking at stuff. And I think he came in after practice and saw that Dan Orlovsky's talking about it on ESPN, and everybody's they got TVs in there, and then he was like, "Oh, what did I do?"
Yeah, and so I think it was. Did he? I can't remember. Did he say that it was taken out of context?
He did, yes.
Okay, so here we go back to media. I think what probably happened there was, and I haven't gone around and looked at every single article to see how he was quoted, right? The quote I know we ran, I thought nothing of it. I didn't, but just because there's a quote out there, I mean, people cut quotes in many different ways and can discuss it on a show like ESPN, a network like ESPN, in many different ways, and that can get taken out of context really quickly. So in that sense, yeah, he probably did see something that he felt was taken out of context. Going through it all, though, I thought he gave a good answer. I thought the Bears coaching staff handled it well. It was oddly one of the most encouraging things I've seen since the start of the season.
That's a good point, because not a lot of what's going on the field has been very encouraging, has it, Kyle?
No, at least they're publicly saying the right things, and I mean that's a good thing. And to me, that's accountability. Like they're open, they're being open and accountable through the first 2 weeks why this isn't working.
Yeah, I think it's important to read the stories and to go watch the full clips. If you missed all this stuff and you don't know what Justin said, it's hard to encapsulate what anybody says with a tweet. Like it's just not the right format, especially when a quarterback comes in and has a great 12-minute conversation about what's gone wrong the first 2 weeks. You can't sum that up in a headline or a tweet or whatever. And like Justin was just being honest, and he put some of the blame on himself. He also, said that there were some things that he felt like he came out and said, like, the coaches coached me all off season to stay in the pocket. And, it was apparent, I think everybody saw it in that game against the Bucs, that there were times when he was hanging in there way too long. And so his point was, I got to take their coaching, but I also got to still play my game. And sometimes that means bailing and just running. And I didn't have any problem with anything he said. And you know what? He most definitely already had these conversations with his coaches. Like, this is what they're saying behind closed doors already. It's not like he came out here and blindsided, Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy with this information. He talked about this on Monday. I'm sure they're taking what he says into account and trying to figure out how to fix his offense.
Yeah, I think what people are reading into there, the misrepresentation of it is that he's upset that they're trying to make him quote unquote a pocket passer, and I don't think that he's upset. I think he's saying, listen, we tried it. I get what we're
Mhm.
trying to do. It's just not working.
That's
And
exactly what he was saying. Yeah.
right. That's exactly what he was
In
saying.
so many words. Yeah.
Right. And some people took that as, well, yeah, he's tossing someone. No, it's like the bigger question, or the bigger concern there, while I like the fact that they're being open and honest about
Mhm.
it, the concern out of that, though, is why did they feel the need to make him a pocket passer? It's not the strength of his game. It's 2023. You don't need a pocket passer to win in the NFL. Like, that is a bit confusing to me. Like, did they just say, well, we just got to see it? Is that all this is? Because that seems dumb.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that's part of it. It's funny. We might have been talking about this on Monday, but like we were, or at least I was thinking that it sure looks like they're just trying to make him a pocket passer and see if he can do it. For however many games to start the season, and that's kind of what he came out and said. Like, yeah, they want me to stay in the pocket. We want to run the offense this way. Um, I don't necessarily. I mean, I would, on some level, I get why they would do that. Like, if you think this guy's a franchise quarterback, he's got to be able to process from the pocket. I understand that you won games with him running, but if that's your number one attribute, is that something that you're going to give a long-term extension to? Is that a quarterback that you're going to hitch your wagon to for the next several years? If they come out and change the whole offense again like they did last year, and they're running, 7, 8 design runs for Fields, rolling him out of the pocket, is that a long-term answer?
Well, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens seem to think so. They just gave Lamar Jackson a lot of money. I mean, Josh Allen got a lot of money. Like, the NFL is changing. I don't think you need a pocket passer like you did
Mhm.
for the most of the last 3 decades, or however long you want to go
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
It's a much different game now. If he, yes, like, ideally, like, you're looking more Patrick Mahomes, right? But if you're getting Lamar Jackson, I think you're pretty happy with that type of guy, because I think even already, like, Justin Fields has better raw ability in the
Mhm,
passing game than Lamar Jackson. I still think there's ways to coach him up in the passing game
mhm.
if he played to his strength. So, like, I mean, Lamar
He's
Jackson's
got the
one.
arm. He's got the
Yeah,
arm for
he's
sure.
Lamar Jackson's won an MVP. Like, so why do you feel the need to take his legs away?
Yeah.
Like, to me, like,
Yeah.
three rushing yards for Justin Fields is a fireable offense. I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely.
that is unacceptable what happened
Yeah.
last week.
And I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, Kyle, but and Mike actually just commented too. I agree with what he's saying. Like, you need to be able to throw to play from the pocket, but
I got you here.
it doesn't. It shouldn't be exclusively. It shouldn't exclusively be that way. And yes, I 100% agree. I think it's crazy that they've gone to this far extreme of Justin stay in the pocket. A handful of design runs over 2 games. I don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't use that weapon that you have. I understand trying to test him a little bit and trying
Well,
to, in some instances, keep him in the pocket and read the field and see what he can handle there. But you also got to try to win football games, and he's one of your best players when he has the ball in his hands and he's running.
well, why can't you do that? Why can't you see him learn or process the pocket? If you want to, we've seen the increase this year of them running out of shotgun or playing out of shotgun. You
Mhm.
can run zone read out of shotgun. You can run a lot of motion across the formation out of shotgun to create, different matchups and maybe use some of that edge speed like we saw last year, but have Justin pull the ball back and still process,
Mhm.
downfield. He's not making that 3, 5, 7-step drop, but, like, that's getting his eyes downfield and where they need to be quicker, because for some reason they're not there right now. So maybe if you get that timing back, that natural timing, that his eyes will get back down where they need to be.
Mhm.
That's all I can think of,
Yeah.
because it's not working the way they're trying.
So on some level, I understand why they're almost sort of testing him with this type of offense. But
That should have been done last year.
If they're a good coaching staff and if they want to win football games, which they absolutely want to win football games, I mean, all the craziness going on, like literally everything's in doubt if you're this coaching staff. Like you got to win games, and they need to make adjustments quick.
Well,
And,
that sorry to cut you off, but why not? Why didn't you try this for 3 or 4 games at the end of last year?
I don't know what. That's a fantastic point, Kyle. I mean, I don't know why. If you found something that was working last year, which they seem to do for a 5-game stretch there,
build off it.
Why wouldn't you just build off it? Why wouldn't you mold your offense in that style?
And maybe that was the plan originally, and because of some of the injuries during training, that's what Poles was saying, I believe, yesterday, that they had to alter some of those plans in training camp because of injuries in the preseason. Because the way that they seem to be building the roster on offense during the offseason did seem to be to cater toward those strengths. Like, I expected them to run more zone read. Like, Tanner Scott making the roster, right? Like, that was a guy that Bayless.
Tyler Scott?
Tyler Scott, thank you. I knew Tanner Scott sounded off. Tyler Scott making the roster was in part because Velus Jones flopped in that kind of role, that motion role last year. And you're thinking, okay, well, he's going to be in that role, right? Roschon Johnson, like, perfect for that zone read game, power zone read game. Like, everything lined up for them to kind of find a way. Robert Tonyan, like, okay, 2 tight end set, 2 guys that can get downfield, or
it's been very quiet, yeah.
Right. It's not what I thought it was going to look like. Like, when did the plan change to have Justin Fields just stand there like a statue, and why?
Yeah, and those are all very important questions, and I don't think we'll ever get an honest answer, or at least we won't for a while. Maybe when all this is over, somebody will come out and talk about it, but yeah, it's a little bit baffling. And
when all this is over, we're just going to week 3. When all this is over,
it's week 3.
And Sean reaches over and takes a shot of whiskey over here.
No, I mean, I hope this coaching staff lasts and they can figure this stuff out, and they're here for a long time. But we've seen this story play out how many times, Kyle?
It's not looking good.
It's not looking good.
And now, as we get 22 minutes or 23 minutes into the stream, we get to a week 3 matchup that we're here to preview technically.
Oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes is playing the Bears this week. That's been like the overlooked fact of the week.
I know, right? Like, oh yeah, the Bears play a football game on Sunday.
Yeah, that's probably not going to go well, is it?
It could get bloody. It could get really bloody. That Braxton Jones news that just kind of got overlooked. So obviously,
yeah, we can talk about the line.
Yeah, you're down Braxton Jones. Tevin Jenkins still on IR. What are we at with Lucas Patrick?
Lucas Patrick is going to be good. He missed Wednesday with an illness. He looked pretty rough after that game in Tampa. I wonder if he was dealing with some heat-related heat stroke or type thing, whatever. But he should be fine. So you're looking at him at center, and then Nate Davis. Okay, well, Nate Davis missed yesterday again. He was here Wednesday. He missed Thursday. I don't know. We're going to have to see on Friday if he's here or not. Obviously, you would like him to be there, but I don't know. He also struggled in that first game. So to me, that's kind of to me, I'd be fine with him or Ja'Tari Carter in that right guard spot, at least until Nate Davis can get back to a regular practice schedule and be in there consistently. But I would bet my money we're going to have Larry Borum at left tackle. He mentioned Eberflus mentioned Ja'Tari Carter potentially playing tackle. I don't really see that on short notice.
That does not seem wise.
I don't think they're going to move him from that right guard spot. they've been coached up Larry to be the swing tackle, to play both those sides all off season. I mean, this is why you do that. When a tackle goes down, you want a guy who can be a really good replacement in there. Um, and obviously, Larry's played in the past, with mixed results, but he's a guy that has a lot of experience.
Robert Phillips checking in from the UK says maybe right to left. Sean, do you think that's?
I don't anticipate that. I feel like they want to leave their rookie on in the same spot where he's been and where he's thrived. And then, just from going to practice yesterday, we only get to see a little bit, but the individual drills, it looked like Darnell was still working as a right tackle and Larry as a left tackle.
CJ asks, "What's up, man?" CJ asks, "Would they consider moving Whitehair to center and use Carter at left guard?" Sean,
I would think so if Lucas Patrick isn't playing well, and we haven't really seen Lucas Patrick play well in a Bears uniform. But
who goes in right? Is that Feeney at right guard?
I mean, or I guess you could put
I'm trying to.
Feeney or Patrick would have to play guard in that scenario. Here's the thing.
That's assuming Nate Davis. Nate Davis.
Assuming Nate Davis isn't there. Although Nate Davis could be back, but I don't think they want to move Ja'Tari Carter just because he's a young player and he focused almost exclusively at that right guard spot all training camp, all off season. I know guys can switch positions, it happens, but I think they would prefer to leave him at right guard. That's just my sense of it.
Who they're gonna have to bring someone up from the practice squad, right?
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, who do you think's coming up?
Well, they signed Aviante Collins to the active roster.
Okay,
so they're at.
I have no. I
think
I
they're
don't,
at 8.
I have no idea. Do you know anything about him?
I know
Sorry. I know he's on the active roster.
I believe he was with the Cowboys. This is testing my knowledge. Was he with the Cowboys practice squad or active roster last year? Let me check this.
He was.
Yes, he was. Points for
Dallas.
Me. He was with Dallas for a couple years.
Undrafted.
Played for Minnesota for a while at the start of his career. He's a guy who's been around. I don't really know a whole lot other than that. I think if he was going to be a starting tackle in the NFL, he probably would have been by now. But he's a guy, he's certainly some depth for you.
Alan Dunlap says, if Borum plays left tackle, you better keep a tight end on the field to block. Yeah, this is a game where I expect the Bears are going to have to use a lot of 2 and 3 tight end packages, a lot of multiple backpack packages. Kari Blasingame is going to be on the field some. You're going to need to block this up for Justin Fields.
That Chiefs defense has been pretty good these first couple of games.
Yeah, this all what we're discussing combined with Chris Jones being on the other side. Oh, man, he's going to eat.
Yeah, that's a problematic. It's unfortunate that he's getting back into 100%, full go here right as the Bears are on the schedule. That's a tough break.
You remember during the offseason or maybe during camp, there was some speculation that he was going to get traded, and there was Bears fans very much interested in the Chris Jones idea. That would be nice right about now.
Yeah, why? Who wouldn't be interested? I'd take that guy.
Robert Phillips says not happy with Komet's blocking so far. I think that's fair for Robert to say. Talking about needing multiple tight ends, I think you're going to see a fair bit of Mercedes Lewis this weekend.
I mean, that's why you got him. He's not here to run routes. He's here to block. He's a big dude, man. He's huge. And so, I would think a Mercedes Lewis would be on the field, more than he has been those first couple of games.
CJ says Casey is vulnerable in the secondary, but got to get past the front 7. Sean, what's the latest on Darnell Mooney?
Yeah, so Darnell, tweaked his knee in that Bucs game, or I believe they were calling it like a a bone bruise or something. It sounded like maybe he knocked knees with a guy or something like that. So he has been limited, and I think he's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a big issue going forward. I would imagine he'll play. He seemed like watching that game on Sunday against the Bucks. I mean, he seemed like he wanted to go in there. He still had his helmet on during that second half, and they just weren't letting him in there. I think he'll be fine. Yeah, some other injury stuff I guess we can mention as well. Eddie Jackson has been out with that foot injury. It's a good sign that he didn't go on IR, but
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be available this week, which obviously is not good when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. Mooney was limited. And then, yeah, Nate Davis. Nate Davis missed yesterday. Hopefully he's back on Friday. And Josh Blackwell seems like he's going to be back. He should be the nickel corner ahead of Greg Stroman, assuming that his hamstring is healthy.
Proudly serving the Sauk Valley area for over 55 years, Ken Nelson Auto Group offers 10 new vehicle franchises in one convenient location right here in Dixon, Illinois. Shop a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles at KenNelsonAuto.com. Sean CJ asks, who's active, Foreman or St. Brown?
That's a good one. That's a good question. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, both were inactive last week.
Yeah.
So I guess you don't have to have either of them active. Yeah, Foreman was a little bit of a surprise. And then I personally was surprised. I was surprised and not surprised that Velus Jones was active over Equinemius St. Brown.
I was surprised.
Like I said, I'm not surprised that they want him as a kick returner, but he didn't return a single kick. So I don't know at that point, like, what are we doing here? I wouldn't be surprised if St. Brown is active ahead of this.
I'm sorry. I picture like Matt Eberflus just like looking at him after the game and going, what are we even doing here?
Bayless, what is it you say to do here?
Yeah.
4 snaps, 5 kickoffs, most of them of which went through the end zone.
Yeah, that was weird. Anyway, all right. So the question was Foreman or St. Brown. I got to think at some point Equinemius St. Brown's going to be active, right?
I mean, you made a point to extend him in January last year, like
particularly if you're going to go back to a game plan that actually works on offense.
Yeah,
then you're going to need his blocking.
I think you can feel good about Herbert and Roshan.
Yeah,
unless somebody gets hurt. I mean, at that then Foreman might be active, but I don't know that you need all 3 of those guys.
Which is kind of sad because I actually think Donta Foreman's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great season last year in Carolina.
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, he also, after that Christian McCaffrey trade last year, he really benefited from they fed him the ball. And, obviously with 2 other guys here, that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah. Allen says, with all this talk about offense and Allen Williams, Bears defense hasn't been good, and they're facing Mahomes with a banged up secondary. Not just Mahomes, they're facing Travis Kelce, who is now a week further removed from that scary knee injury that occurred right before the start of the season. You could tell last week that he was still a touch slow against Jacksonville, but I'm guessing he'll be closer to 100% this week, Sean. Travis Kelce against this Bears defense and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, this does not equal good things.
I don't know who's going to stop Travis Kelce for this Bears defense. But you could say that Tremaine Edmonds has certainly faced him a lot. He's seen him, he knows him, but yeah, that only does you so well if your secondary is banged up and you got no pass rush. It's gonna be a tough matchup. I have a hard time seeing them. I can't see. They couldn't pressure Baker Mayfield. I can't see them pressuring Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I don't feel like the fact that they didn't pressure. Like I think you had it in
You know
Bear Down,
what?
Nerd Up.
I
Like
should. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead. Sorry, I won't cut you off.
no, it's a good plug it, plug Bear Down, Nerd
Yeah,
Up. The Bears actually had what
they
four
did pressure.
defenders. They
Yeah.
had four defenders. Like in here, you tell the stat. You remember it offhand?
Yeah, Next Gen Stats measures how far a defender is from the quarterback when he throws. So it just takes the physical distance in yards. And the Bears' top four pass rushers last week against the Bucks were all better than league average. They just couldn't finish the deal. They couldn't, how many? There were several times where they got a hand on Baker Mayfield, and they just couldn't bring him down.
Well, you saw the Ngakwe one really comes to mind where he got a
Yeah,
pretty clean left arm on him and couldn't get him to the ground.
yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying, I mean, listen, Baker Mayfield isn't the most mobile guy in the world, and Patrick Mahomes certainly is more mobile like
He's a
that.
little bit more slippery. Yeah,
Right. And so I'm not saying, but there were actually a little encouraging signs there. The numbers say. So the question becomes, can the coaching staff coach him up? Like, what's the little thing they got to do 10% better?
right.
Against the Chiefs, 10% better, still probably not good enough. They may need to get 20% better,
They
which is
might need to
different.
get a little more against this team.
Yeah, against this Chiefs team. But there actually are a little bit of encouraging signs looking through the numbers. My bigger concern actually is, as I think Alan said earlier, is man, the secondary a little banged up and frankly not playing to the level that I anticipated coming into the season.
No, you're certainly seeing a little bit more miscommunications, and maybe that's just early season stuff. I mean, that tends to happen a lot in weeks 1, 2, 3. But yeah, you're not seeing, you know, what you wanted out of your secondary. Jalen Johnson's been pretty quiet, other than he did force a fumble in that Bucks game, but they didn't the Bucks jumped on it. Um, and yeah, Tyreek Stevenson's been out of position a couple of times, and it's tough though when you were without both your safeties for a large portion of that game in week 2.
Yeah. Uh let's see. CJ says hoping Edmonds make Kelsey work. Sean, I haven't looked back at this, but CJ just gave me a good idea. Something I want to look at this weekend before the game is obviously Tremaine Edmonds is familiar with Travis Kelsey from
Yeah,
Buffalo, Kansas City, those games the last few years. I want to see how. Obviously, it's a different scheme, um, but I want to see how Tremaine Edmonds was used
against him. Yeah.
against Travis Kelsey. See if we can get kind of an idea how he could be employed. Because
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch the tape or look at some of the
yeah,
advanced numbers on that. But I that is piquing my interest as well, because you got a really big, rangy linebacker. It would seem like that would be the type of guy that.
it's got to be the number one priority, right?
Yeah,
Like finding a way to take away, like if Sky Moore beats you, if whoever
exactly.
I see, like I'm blanking on their wide receiver core at this point. That's how much Kadarius Toney. Like if those guys beat you, those guys beat you. Like you just can't have Travis Kelsey go for like 12 and 150 and a touchdown, which I really fear is coming.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, this passing attack is a lot less scary when Travis Kelsey is sidelined, and obviously he's back and he's going to play in this game. But you're right, Kyle. I mean, they have some things to work on in that wide receiver room down in Kansas City. You would hope that the Bears would put a lot of attention on stopping Travis Kelsey, or at least slowing him down.
Mike says they need to bracket Kelsey with both Edmonds and Brisker all game. Use Stevenson and Johnson to match man straight up, and for a wide receiver to beat them. I get what you're saying there. That is what I would do. Not sure that's what Matt Eberflus is going to want to do in his base defense.
Yeah, and look, you got one less voice in that defensive room. Matt Eberflus is definitely making the calls now. We've seen they have been, quite conservative in the past, and I think, looking back at last year too, offense and defense, I think that's all coming from the top. Is my hunch is that Eberflus, he plays conservatively. He wants his defense to do well from that base defense. And I don't know if that's a recipe for success against these Chiefs. Not with the personnel they have at this moment, at this
No,
point in time.
no, definitely not. Uh, want to see if I can find that. Yeah. Mark asked the question. Mark Kazak asked the question: is there any scenario where Claypool is inactive? I'd say no. Right?
I'd say no. I don't see it. He's playing
He
too many snaps.
played too many snaps, and while he didn't play great last week, he certainly had an improvement. Um, and I don't feel like last week was a what lack of trying.
The
I
effort was there.
Yeah, the effort was there. I
You could
just
see it in the blocking too. I mean,
he
sure, there was a play or two
he
where he had a bad block,
well he
but
I think he
the
well I
effort
think
was
yeah
there.
I think he's just a poor pass blocker, and that's not really a surprise. That goes back to his days, and yeah, that might be partially
There
I
was
think
also some plays where he looked good blocking
right
in that
yeah.
Bucks game.
I think it can be a combination of not full effort sometimes and just not being very good at it. So, but yeah, and occasionally he gets a good one in there, but it's probably not what you want to ask him to do at this point of his career. That's why you
But
have
yeah,
Equinemius St. Brown, right?
I
But
I
either
would
way,
yeah. I
yeah,
fully expect Claypool to remain active as long as he's healthy.
yeah. How about get Chase Claypool downfield?
Yeah, you saw
You
it
know,
on the touchdown. I mean, he's he can catch the football and he's a big dude. He's a huge target and he can do some pretty impressive things with that body type.
that Chase Claypool touchdown, and in particular the Justin Fields throw, is the type of play where it gets you the every time I'm out, they pull me back in gift going there, because
Yeah.
Justin threaded the needle on that. That was a dime.
That was a great throw. That was I mean, that was the best play of the game. That was impressive.
I'm laughing because I just see Mark says Blitz Robert, and then Blitz LOL is the reply. The chat's amusing me this morning. Sean, anything we haven't hit on before we get out here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, it was a wild week. They briefly cut Nathan Peterman. We didn't really mention
Oh
that.
yeah, actually,
Um,
I got a DM from my buddy down in Hershire, Paul, who wanted me to ask you about that. So I appreciate you making sure to bring that up, because I almost dropped the ball for Paul. But shout out to Paul, by the way.
yeah, well, Courtney Cronin does good work for ESPN, and according to her reporting, the reason they did that was because they were trying to poach a lineman off somebody else's practice squad after Braxton Jones went down. And in order to do that, you have to have a roster spot open. So they cut Peterman one day, and the deal fell through. They couldn't get whoever it was, and so the following day, they just signed Peterman back to the active roster.
Okay.
Is my understanding of what went down there. So
Okay.
kind of a procedural thing. I don't think I saw some people making a big deal about, oh, Bajan's number 2 now. Flus is going to bench Fields if he continues to struggle, and I don't think that's what was going on.
No, definitely not. I wonder what that is like. Like, do they go to Nathan and be like, so like
I
this is
know.
gonna happen? You're gonna have to redo your W-2 and everything after this, but no worries,
I know. I also wonder about the ramifications of that move of getting cut for a day. And then it's funny because like I passed Nathan Peterman in the hallway literally like 30 minutes before that happened. And the only reason I noticed it is, I think he had like a smoothie or something, and he dropped part of it on the floor and he was all mad at himself. And I just noticed that it stuck out in my brain. And then like 30 minutes later, they cut him, and I'm like, what happened?
this sounds like a story here. We're coming, because now I want to know, like, I'm really interested to find out like what happens if someone is cut for a day like that. Like, do they have to do, like, is there like paperwork that like they have to fill out and then fill out again the next day to get like
Yeah,
reemployed, or like
right. Or like,
nowadays it's probably all electronic, but
yeah. And maybe it's the case where the Bears were like, we know we want to keep you, but so maybe they just like, overlooked whatever is in the contract that might make that funky. But I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird situation.
So yeah, it says so when a player like Peterman gets cut and re-signed, do they clear out their locker? I highly doubt it. But
Literally, I don't think he would have had time. I also think they would have signed him to the practice squad
yeah,
still and kept him around. So no, I don't think so.
yeah, that would be really awkward though. If like 3 days went by and then he had to come back and get his stuff out of his locker.
Yeah, that would have been.
All right, we're completely losing the plot at this point.
I love some Nathan Peterman talk. That's how you know it's a good show.
Listen, I just need to laugh at this point of the week. You just need to laugh so you don't cry. But I have a feeling, guys. Here it is. It's 10:20 on Friday morning. We're gonna be with you all weekend long. I'm guessing because there's gonna be more news between now and 3 p.m. on Sunday. So stick with us at ShawLocal.com. Sean, you got anything else before we get out of here, man?
No, you know what, guys? Just try to enjoy the game on Sunday. Hopefully it's not as bad as we're making it seem.
No, you know what? I actually let's give a prediction before we get out of here because I don't expect the Bears to keep it particularly close. Like I think they're going to lose, I'll say 35-24, but I do expect to see a better effort from the offense. I think what I heard from Justin Fields and the coaching staff this week was encouraging that they're going to make some adjustments.
I would think that they got to make some adjustments. I'm also going to take the Chiefs. I'm going to say 30-17. I hope that they can keep this a game at least and make it interesting for folks watching at home. But it's a tough one. It's a tough matchup. And hey, I mean, weirder things have happened in the NFL. I think it might have been week 3 last year when the Colts didn't the Colts beat the Chiefs in week 2 or 3 last year? Weird things happen.
Weird things happen every week in the NFL, particularly early in the season. Everyone's bad right now. So
everyone's rusty and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so weird things can happen. But all right, guys, everyone enjoy the weekend. We'll be back with you to recap this Bears Chiefs game on Monday. Talk to you guys later.